Okay, so this is the first video for my book, Overcoming Digital SAT Math. So this is the most important video to watch because it tells you how to use the entire book. So basically, I just give you a disclaimer, like all the videos are going to be out by January 31st, 2024. If you're interested in getting this book, it's available on TPT, Teachers Pay Teachers, which you can find the link on the homepage of my website. And there's just a little bit of my background if you want to read that, but the most important part is what I'm about to go over right now. So watch this entire video to make sure that you get all the important points. Now remember, first off, that you can change the video speed and the video quality with the little settings button on this video on YouTube. So if you want to adjust the quality of the video, like how it looks, it might look a little blurry if you're watching this on a phone because automatically your phone tries to like save data space by lowering the video quality. So if you want to make the video quality better, you can just click that little settings button and you can adjust the video quality. You can also adjust the speed that the video is going to make my talking slower or faster throughout all of the videos that you watch for this. Now, like I said, all videos will be released by the last of January this year, January 31st, 2024. And I want to note that you need to be aware that this book is to teach you the concepts that are going to be on the digital SAT math section. It is not in like a typical practice test format. Most of the questions are in the format that aligns with the digital SAT exam, but I did some things differently when I felt like it was beneficial. Like for instance, some of the Roman numeral problems, you probably won't see that on the digital SAT exam, but it was a way to make the problems a little bit harder or to like test you on a concept more efficiently than using one of the other methods and breaking something down into like several different questions. So the whole point of this book is that you learn all the concepts that you need to learn for the exam as efficiently and effectively as possible, and then you go and take practice tests to kind of get used to using the technology and everything, because that's another thing you have to get used to, using the device that you're going to be using on test day and like the Blue Book app and all that good stuff. So that's the whole point of this. Basically, learn everything, all the math concepts here, and then start practicing with practice tests. Now, each chapter in this book will have a video that corresponds with it. Now, in the videos, I'll be going over the explanations and like working through the problems so you can see me do that and get an explanation for how to do the problems. But I suggest that you first attempt them on your own and then just come and watch that video for anything that you need clarification on after you've already tried to do the corrections on your own, because that's going to get you the best results. So basically, do it on your own first, try to correct it on your own first, and then if you need any help, like you're just really stuck on a couple problems, then watch the video for those explanations. Now, because most of these concepts you should have already learned in school, so this is more of like a workbook format, but if you need an explanation on how to actually, like a lesson on how to do things first, check the description of each video, because I'm going to try to add links to videos that correspond with like examples of me teaching how to do those types of problems so that you can get kind of like a lesson first. But if you don't want to wait on that, I actually do that already in my ACT prep book series that I have. So if you go to the ACT prep book playlist for math, you can just go and watch those first. Now, there are some problems that are the same in both of these books, because like if something was a problem that a lot of people missed in my ACT book, I felt like it would be something that might be tested on the SAT, I decided to include it in this one as well as like kind of like a bonus. Which is also why there's like more questions in this book than the other one. So that's why some of the questions might be the same, but the majority of them are different for most of the chapters, except for like one chapter, I think. And then, so you can go and kind of see that as like a lesson before you try different types of questions in this book, if you prefer to do that. So let's move on to the test and the format and kind of like what's changed and what to expect. So I have this little like short version right here, which is just kind of like the bullet points of the main things you need to remember. So for the digital SAT math, it's now one math section. So they're calling it like the one math section rather than the two that they had before. So there's just one section, but it's broken down into two modules. Think of the modules as like subsections. So the test is also adaptive now. So what that means is you basically do the entire first module, like the first subsection part. And then depending on how you perform on that, it'll give you one of two options for module 2. Like it'll automatically give you the easier version of module 2 or the harder version of module 2, depending on how well you did on module 1. So that's what they mean by adaptive. So module 1 and 2, they both have the same number of questions and the same timing. So it's just 22 questions and 35 minutes for each of them. You, just like with the old exam, you can't like where you couldn't switch between sections, you can't switch between sections or modules here. So like if you're done with module 2 early, you can't go back to module 1. Like that's not an option. So just be aware of that. The timing strategy I recommend is 1 minute per question. Now, technically, if you do the math, you have like 1.59 yada, yada, yada minutes per question. But as you'll see when I release the digital SAT book for like the grammar stuff, if those problems have like 1.19 minutes per question or something, I think it's easier for students to just remember 1 minute for every type of question on the exam versus like 1.5 and then 1 minute for the other one. But you can use 1.5 if you want. If you have extended time, I would just multiply the timing strategy that I've said by 1.5 minutes for every question. So again, I recommend 1 minute per question and then using the extra time at the end to go back to anything that you've marked as like needing to go back to. That's another thing that you can do on this. It is digital, so you can kind of like, they have a bookmark sort of function on the Blue Book where you can like mark something as like, hey, I want to come back to this later. But I do recommend that when you do that, you also mark what your best guess is because you don't know if you'll have time to come back to that later. So mark it as like, oh, I want to come back to it, but also you should guess just in case you can't come back to it later. That way you're not just giving up a point. And then, or a question, I should say. And then, so updates to the digital exam, there's that, the module thing, how it's adaptive, also the timing, like I just mentioned, and also they're all standalone questions now. So like before you might have had like a 2-part math question or something, where it might have, both of them refer to like the same figure or the same information that's part of the question. You don't have that anymore. Every single question is a standalone, like it's in its own thing. It doesn't refer back to any previous questions. So that's something that's new. And like I said, it appears that there's no more of the Roman numeral problems from what I've seen in the digital study guide, digital SAT study guide. Again, this is all new. So all of this information that I'm giving you right now, I'm recording this January 8th, 2024, is based off of exact things that I've seen on the College Board website and in their digital SAT study guide that I read through thoroughly, because that's all that we have to go off of right now, but things could change in the future. If they do, I'll put that in the description of this video. So let's see what else. Oh yeah, so the previous book that I did was for the paper version. You'll see that a lot of the questions are the same or like very similar because they're not really changing what they're testing in terms of math concepts. The only thing that's not included anymore is complex numbers. So complex numbers, like the I stuff, imaginary numbers, that's not tested anymore. So I took that chapter out and then I added questions that were more aligned with like what the digital SAT is like phrasing stuff to be like and like what types of questions they're asking, but they're kind of asking the same types of questions, so that's why a lot of them are the same. They're just kind of like, if anything, they minimize the wording because now it's like, I think it's 50 words or less for word problems where it didn't used to be like that. So if anything, they're making it easier, and I felt like I wasn't gonna like make a problem easier just for the sake of it. I feel like it's better to be prepared for anything. So I did shorten a lot of the problems and like adjust them for the SAT, for the new SAT, digital SAT format, but I kept some of the problems that I felt like would be a good challenge for you to just be prepared for anything, the way that they were. So there's that. Make sure you check the College Board's website for like all the technology requirements. Like that's important because you have to be aware now you're not just showing up with like your pencil and like you could take the paper exam. You have to have an approved device. And if you don't have an approved device, you have to sign up at a minimum at least 30 days prior for like their device lending program thing that they have. And I believe you're not even guaranteed a device with that. So you have to be careful. If you're taking it on a school day, your school will provide you with that. But if you're not, like if you're taking one of the weekend exams or something, you have to be aware that it's not like you can just last minute get ready for this test. In terms of like what you have to bring, you have to have like the approved device. You have to like set up there's a whole like testing setup that you have to do 1 to 5 days beforehand. So like you really have to like look at the technology requirements for this exam so that you have what you need to take the exam. And look at all the photo ID requirements, that sort of thing too, because there's some IDs that are valid that they'll take, some they won't, like print out your ticket, like that sort of thing. Calculator policy, test day checklist, registration deadlines, all that good stuff. Like I said earlier, when I said like mark stuff that you're gonna skip, never leave anything blank. If it's been a minute, then guess and move on to the next question. Don't tell yourself you're gonna come back to it because you might not get the chance to. Pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, a lot of the stuff hasn't changed. It's the formatting, if like anything's changed, it's just gotten easier in my opinion. Because they had already kind of been shifting. Like one thing I noticed was like the more recent paper exams were kind of already shifting into like changing more to how it was going to align with the digital SAT exams. So I didn't notice much of a difference from that. Which again is a lot of why I kept my book the same, because a lot of the questions the same, because I was writing like I wrote it very recently, so it was based off of that already like shifted kind of questioning. So that nothing's really like changed much besides the complex number thing and like the wording. If anything, it's gotten easier. So like if you can do this entire book, and you just like get used to like the technology stuff of like going through the Blue Book app and like doing a practice test that way before the exam, you're definitely good to go. And you're like, yeah, pretty well off. Now, when I say the questions have gotten easier and like less wordy, that's my opinion. The College Board says like their official statement is like it's along the same lines as like the other like paper version. Again, that's just like my thinking. I think a lot of students will find this book a lot harder than the actual exam. Because the whole point of this book is like to get you ready for anything. Well, to do that, or you can like cram or like use it like you don't necessarily want a 1600 maybe. You can use it one of the other ways that I mention in like the other study plan scenarios, like where maybe you just focus on the quizzes because the quizzes are like the stuff that shows up the most often, and like you don't need to know every little itty bitty thing, or you're just kind of wanting like a decent score, that sort of thing. Then you can use the book differently. To your advantage that way, where you just like kind of do like the diagnostic and the review test and the quizzes, and that kind of covers like your main bases, and then kind of like do chapters as you want if you're not looking for like a super high score. And then like I said, there's only been 4 official practice tests released for like the digital SAT exam. So I might like update this book as we get more practice tests over the years and stuff like that. So just like watch out for that, which is another reason why I decided to list it on TPT instead of Amazon, because I can make those updates over time. Amazon does not allow me to do that if you've already purchased the book, but TPT does. So yeah, I'll always be updating this resource with any updates that come out. So for the extra tips, make sure that you're practicing your arithmetic periodically. Now you do get another big change is that you get a calculator the entire time. You still get the formula sheet the entire time for the math sections, like you did, like last time with the math sections, you got the formula sheet the whole time, but you only got the calculator for half of it, like one of the 2 sections. Now you get it for the entire math portion. You get the formula sheet and the calculator. But even though you can use a calculator, I still recommend that for the 3 reviews part of this book, you try doing it without a calculator and then with a calculator. You want to do both because you'd be surprised how many students will like make a very silly mistake because they have, it's what we call number sense as teachers, where like students have relied so much on calculators that they don't have number sense. So they'll get something wrong based off of like, say you want to put, like I give the example of you're trying to do 30 times 10 in a calculator. I've seen so many times where students will do something where they'll, instead of doing 30 times 10 in the calculator, they'll do 30 times 1. And then they'll get the answer 30, and they're not even paying attention to what the actual like problem was, or like in their head they're not like thinking, oh, that's way off because it was like, it should be like way bigger than that because it's 30 times 10. Like that doesn't click. So that's why I recommend that you don't just rely on the calculator. You do it like, you can do it the regular way and the calculator way. So yeah, like I said, make sure you do the setup process at least 1 to 5 days before your exam. I would do it like before that. And then, but that's what the College Board like officially recommends. And then pay close attention to the rules for the free response section. So one thing that has changed is now for the free response, like fill in stuff, you can have negative answers now. You used to not be able to do that, but now you can. So if you get a negative answer on the free response, don't freak out because it could be negative. But you still can't do the mixed numbers thing. You can look at this like on the College Board website. They have this available where you can look at the free response rules, and in like the digital SAT study guide book, if you want to look at that. But you can't do mixed numbers. Like you can't do 3.5. Like if you were to write 3.5, it's gonna read as like 31/2. Like you can't do mixed numbers like that. So like if you got 3.5, you would have to put like 3.5, or like you would have to do like the turning the mixed number into an improper fraction, and then this would be 7/2 instead. So like, don't do mixed numbers. You can only include, remember this is on a computer, so like that's why it says characters, 5 characters for positive answers. So you can use 5 for positive and 6 for negative answers. So if, for instance, you got like 1.3333333, and it just keeps on going, you can't input that because that's not 5 characters. It's a positive thing, so it has to have only 5 characters. Remember, this dot is a character. It's not numbers, it's characters. So that means you can only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can only have up to here. So you, what you're going to want to do is either round it or cut it off. Now, let's say that this instead was like a 5. So it was like 1.3355555, whatever. So you have the option then, here, what you would write would be 1.333 is an option, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters for a positive answer. So you could cut it off, or you can round it, and it would also be correct. So you could say 1.33, and then this rounds up to 4 because the neighbor's of 5. Those are both fine. And if it was negative, it would just be the negative version of that, because they give you that extra 6th character for the negative symbol. So then where to start? So after you watch this video, if you have my book, I would go to, or like you can also buy parts of this resource. Like if you don't want to buy the whole book, you can buy like just the study plans with the diagnostic test, or just the review test, or just the quizzes. So if you bought like just the study plans and diagnostic, because they come together, I believe, then you would go to page 10 of this book if you have the whole book, or just like the next section in that resource would be like the study plans. Just go there and pick the study plan that works for you. Now, I put this disclaimer again, even though like I kind of already referenced it earlier. Make sure that you're completing real practice tests with the technology you're going to be able to use, because it'd be really silly if like you learn all the content here and then you do poorly on the exam because you don't know how to work the device that you're on, or you don't know how to use the Blue Book app, stuff like that, that you don't catch unless you actually do the practice test first. Like maybe you don't understand how to input like the repeating decimal thing, like where I just showed you, it would be like 1.333 or 1.334. Maybe you're forgetting to do that and you don't catch that until you start taking practice tests. So like that's important to like work through the actual real practice exams first, to kind of catch those errors before, those silly errors before test day. And then I have a free resource available on TPT. It's linked in this product, or you can just kind of like look at it on my TPT. Like if you go to my TPT on my website, there's like a link to my TPT store front where I have a bunch of free resources and paid resources. This is the free one that kind of just goes over in detail a lot of the updates to the exam. I would read through that. It has a lot of the links to like important things, like if you need to do the device lending program and sign up for a device, it has a direct link to like go to that and go do that, that sort of thing, and like a direct link to like the test day checklist, like what should you bring, that sort of stuff, and it's all free. And then this is just also, the link is like right here. If you want to go and follow my TPT and like see that, and my website and my YouTube, which you're already on right here. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So now just move on to the study plans.